So President Trump made what I think is probably the single worst decision of his presidency. And that's saying a lot because I think he has a lot of disastrous and terrible decisions he's made in his presidency. But he vetoed a bipartisan bill that stopped the United States from supporting Saudi Arabia's genocide in Yemen. And the grossest thing about it is that it was in the news for maybe a day, and then it was gone. Think about the fallout from this and what's actually going to happen to real human beings. So I waited to report this because it happened a few days ago now, and I waited to report it because I was honestly holding out hope for a veto override. I thought there was a possibility, and the reason I thought there was a possibility is that it passed in the first place with quite a few votes. But there's not enough to override the veto. The votes just simply aren't there because first it needs to go to the Senate to override it, and we're about 10 votes short in the Senate. And you would need to flip 10 Republicans on the side of, helping Yemeni babies. And they don't give a flying fuck about Yemeni babies. So there are good Republicans who made the right decision here. Mike Lee was one of them. Rand Paul is another one. These are the more libertarian-leaning Republicans. Now, I don't think they made this decision to be on the right side of this issue for humanitarian reasons, but they did make it for, procedural reasons. They think, hey, the president cannot just willy-nilly go to war wherever he wants and help whoever he wants without congressional approval, so we need to assert our authority to determine if we go to war. And so that's why they said, no, you have to stop aiding Saudi's genocide. And of course, the Democrats were all on the right side of this, and they're on the right side of it because we're fucking helping massacre babies, women and children. And, there was no approval through Congress. But how sad is it that there is the majority of the Republicans in the Senate are pro-genocide. Or at the very least, they just don't care. Yeah, whatever. Who gives a shit, man? I don't care. I don't care about those kids. All I care about is, Raytheon, Boeing, are they making their money, getting their profits? Because that's what this ultimately comes down to. We want to keep selling weapons to Saudi Arabia. We want to keep, helping them do their shitty massacre, their evil massacre. They don't care about the people who are being impacted by this in a negative way. So, here's what Trump has now done and what he's put a stamp of approval on. Look at this. This is from about 4 months ago. Up to 85,000 young children are dead from starvation. This is in Yemen because of Saudi Arabia and us helping them. Also, take a look at this one. The UK and the US bombs caused nearly 1,000 civilian casualties in Yemen, damning report finds. So this was in The Independent, and it was from the US-based University Network for Human Rights. Now, that number is actually low, because in reality, 60,000 people have died overall. 60,000. Now, they're saying only 1,000 are civilians. No, because who are we fighting? We're fighting the Houthi rebels. And the Houthi rebels on the ground are fighting Al-Qaeda. So we are killing the people who are fighting Al-Qaeda. What? Al-Qaeda are the people who attacked us on 9/11. We are now helping Saudi Arabia kill the people who are fighting Al-Qaeda, and we think that's a good thing? And we don't, we count them as, well, they're fighting military-age men, so guilty. We're going to pretend like they're not civilians, and we have every right to kill them along with Saudi Arabia. But we don't! We don't! This is an illegal offensive war! By the way, we've also bombed schools, hospitals, open-air markets, and mosques, and our weapons, it's clear they're made in America. It says made in America on them. And so you wonder why they hate us. Well, maybe because we're bombing their fucking schools, and then our weapons are sitting there, and it's clear it's from America. I mean, you can't say enough negative stuff about what's going on here, man. This is going to be judged so harshly by history, and Trump doesn't care. The Republicans don't care. They're shoving their head in the sand, And the media is beyond the worst because they don't even fucking talk about it. They don't even talk about it. They're too busy focusing on a much weaker case of, hey, maybe let's impeach Trump over obstruction of justice. He's doing an illegal war against a country that didn't attack us and aiding a genocide. And it's, again, this wasn't approved by law. So there's a case for impeachment there. You want to make that case? No, you're going to talk about this for not even a full day and then move on like nothing happened. This is the worst decision of his presidency. I got more for you. About 14 million people, half of Yemen's population, are currently at risk of famine. 14 million people. We've also blockaded the country along with Saudi Arabia. There's a cholera outbreak that's now killing people. And then the question becomes, well, why did Trump do this? Like, what? I don't understand. Why would he do this? Well, The Intercept said this a couple months ago. State Department team led by former Raytheon lobbyist pushed Mike Pompeo to support Yemen war because of arms sales. So you might have thought I was joking around when I said, oh, he's doing it for Raytheon and Boeing. No, that's definitely part of the reasoning. They want money for their re-election campaigns. They want to keep this military-industrial complex oiled up and moving along. And so, when they're told, hey, you got to support Saudi Arabia and you got to support arming these fucking terrorists because it helps us for arms sales, they're like, whatever, I don't give a fuck. I have no conscience. Go right ahead. And Trump ran half the time on being against the wars. Are you fucking kidding me? Then there's this. The Trump Organization does not own any buildings in Saudi Arabia. But the president has worked closely with officials from the country over the years. Trump has been paid tens of millions of dollars by Saudi investors and its government through a variety of business deals. So that's in Business Insider. And to give you more specifics on that, the Saudi royal family purchased Trump's old yacht for $20 million. They helped purchase his casino, which was going bankrupt. The Saudi government was in on a deal for that. They purchased the entire 45th floor of the Trump World Tower for $4.5 million. And then there's $300,000 that they funneled to Trump. While he is president and is in office, they funneled him about $300,000 during his presidency through his D.C. hotel. So there's every level of scandal in this story you could possibly imagine. And again, the media spoke about it for maybe a day and then moved on like nothing happened. When Trump literally signed us on to continue aiding a fucking genocide, an illegal offensive war that's a genocide of innocent people. And what would the media rather talk about? Look, this was in Salon from Adam Johnson about a year ago. MSNBC has done 455 Stormy Daniels segments in the last year, but none on the U.S. war in Yemen. And as my friend Jimmy Dore says, you wonder why people get their news from YouTube. It really pains me that this was not the blockbuster story that it should be. This was not headline news everywhere in the country, in every newspaper, on every TV network, news network. It really pains me that that's the case because, listen, I'm of the belief that it's the job of the media to educate people. And if all they're going to talk about all day and night is the Mueller report and obstruction of justice and, oh my God, Manchurian candidate Trump, even though the Mueller report also says no evidence of collusion. But if that's all they're going to talk about, then that is what's going to drive the collective minds of the people. The collective will of the people is going to be more focused on that than anything else. People are going to know more about the Mueller report than about the Yemen situation. And that actively does a disservice to the country because the only way a democracy can function properly is if people are educated on this stuff. Now, in our case, our democracy is so corrupted, even if they're educated on it, that doesn't necessarily constitute the politicians doing the right thing because they're corrupt and because they're bought. But certainly, it would be much better if people were educated on it, and then you can muster up popular will and resistance to the worst aspects of what's going on. Because I think that if people knew all this stuff that was going on, I mean, that would massively hurt the Republicans and hurt Donald Trump and hurt his re-election efforts. If people knew this, and if this was on the front of their minds, and if it was spoken about endlessly by the media. You want to do outrage coverage, you want to do fucking sensationalism all day. Well, here's something that's genuinely outrageous and genuinely sensational that you can talk about day and night and hammer away, but they won't do it. They'd rather do the, as Glenn Greenwald says, the shitty Tom Clancy novel level talk about Manchurian candidates and whatnot in terms of Russia. And it's hurting the country. And if I was, an elected Democrat, I would focus like a laser on issues like this. Not just because of the political upsides of it, but also because morally it's the right thing to do. Our country is aiding a genocide right now. And the media doesn't care, and the Democrats are yawning and focusing on other stuff. What a broken, disgusting system, man. I feel like I live in the Twilight Zone, where I come out here and I tell you guys about what the most important story is. And there's just a collective yawn from media elites and from political elites. We're aiding a genocide, man. We're aiding a genocide. And Donald Trump just signed on to being Saudi Arabia's bitch, to shutting up and doing their bidding, shutting up and doing Raytheon's bidding and Boeing's bidding. Don't ever let this guy say, ever, that he's anti-war again, that he's for non-intervention ever again. The mask has been ripped off, and we know what he's really about. And what he's really about is being the establishment's bitch and continuing the status quo, even if the status quo is as immoral and evil as aiding a genocide. That's not hyperbole. That's the truth. This is the biggest story of Trump's presidency by far, and it's not being treated like that at all.